Hello, hello, hello. How are you all? It's really good to be back here in the group with my Facebook Live today. I am going to talk about one of my favourite Stephen Covey tools that he talks about in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know if I hold the book up to you, I mean, my book is so old that the pages are going yellow around the edges, and I actually have to admit that I had this on my bookcase for years and years and years before I read it, even though millions of people around the globe had read it. But when I did read it, I was really surprised at it's not just effective in business, it's about being effective as a human being. And I learned so much from him about how he used his principles in his personal life as well as in his business life. If you haven't read this book, then absolutely do make some time to read it. And the great thing is that it is now available on Audible. So you can get it on Audible, but there are some really good diagrams and things in the book. So if you do listen to it on Audible, do still buy the book, because there's some really great tools in it that are worth looking at visually as well as listening to him explaining the tool. And today I want to talk about a tool that when I found it in his book, I thought, oh, that's so true, and it really resonated with me. And it's a quadrant that is like 4 boxes, and I'm going to go through the boxes. I know that if I hold the quadrant up, I think it looks back to front, so if you can just imagine, there are 4 squares, and whenever you're doing anything as a small business owner, it always feels like it's urgent, but there are really only 2 criteria to every task that we do as business owners, and that is urgency or how important it is. And this quadrant makes it really easy to know whether it's something that is really truly important, and are you doing it because of being led by strategy, or are you doing it because it's urgent or it's pleasant to do. And so this for me is a really great tool. So the first box on the top left is urgent and important. So that's stuff like a telephone ringing or a meeting that you have to get to. That's urgent and important. The top right box is not urgent and important. Now, this is stuff that you need to make time for, because there is no urgency to do this thing, whatever this thing is, but it's important. And when I talk about importance, I mean in relation to your business outcomes or whatever outcomes, because Stephen Covey's habit 2 is start with the end in mind. So you need to know your outcome when you use this tool. And this tool actually shows up in his book as habit 3, which is put first things first. Now, what Stephen Covey says is that the more time you spend in the second quadrant, which is not urgent but important, is the more success you're going to generate as a person, whether you're focusing on business or personal, because these are the strategic things. These are the things that will move your business forward. They're things like planning, they're things like relationship building, they're things that actually are going to move your business forward. And maybe not now, they could be preventative stuff that you're putting in place in your strategy. Now, if you find, and this is really common with small business owners, if you find that you are spending a lot of time in quadrant 1, which is urgent and important, then you need to find a way of prioritizing that urgency. Because let me give you an example. I mean, if you've got a crisis going on, then you have to deal with it, right? But how often are you doing stuff that you perceive to be urgent and you're putting that as a higher priority just because it is urgent? So for example, when I am focusing on something that I know is really important in my business, I don't open my email inbox. I simply don't open it, because I know that if I open that inbox, I could potentially get sucked into the black hole of emails. Now, nobody is going to die if I don't answer my emails for an hour. They simply are not. But if there is something that I know that is important to me in taking my business to where I want it to go, I call those my FBIs, fastest business impact. If you've heard me talk or seen my Facebook lives, I've definitely done a Facebook live on income producing activity, IPA and FBIs. And this really works beautifully hand in hand with this concept from Stephen Covey. So we often perceive things to be urgent. So you might think you have to go into your email inbox. You might think you have to answer the phone. You might think all sorts of things are an absolute must do. And often these are things that give us instant gratification. So if you do open your email inbox and somebody asks you a quick question that takes you 30 seconds to answer, then you can tick that as being done and you get instant gratification for that. But actually, does it need to be done right now? Is it more important than something that's going to move your business forward? So I want you to ask yourself, especially when you are busy, how important is this really? Does it really need to be done right now? Because what I got from this tool from Stephen Covey is actually often it's just in our head. It's not as important as you think it is. So if you go with habit number 2, start with the end in mind, does this task move you towards that end? If it does, and it's urgent, that also means it's urgent and important. If it's urgent, but it doesn't move you towards the end, then it's really urgent and not important, which is quadrant 3. Now, the more time you spend in quadrants 3 and 4, which are the two along the bottom, urgent and not important, and not urgent and not important, that means that you're just doing it because it's a pleasant task or it's easy to do. It's emotion-led. These are things that you are doing that actually it doesn't matter if you do them or not. And I remember many moons ago when I was in the corporate world, now this is many moons ago because I've had the sales consultancy for 21 years, 22 years in October, there was this report that I used to do, bearing in mind this was before the days of computers. It was like a hand-crafted Excel spreadsheet with sales figures, and it took me a whole morning to do, and I had to get it to head office by lunchtime. Honestly, it took me that whole morning, and 1 month I didn't do it and nobody asked. So you'd have thought that that was quite important because it had figures in it, but I never did it and nobody ever asked me. So what I suggest to you is sometimes things are important in your own head. So ask yourself this question. Spend as much time in the second quadrant, which is not urgent but important. And the more time you spend there, the more success you will have. So if you just quickly, while I've got 1 minute left, I will read you the habits of highly effective people, the 7 habits. So they are: be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, which is this particular tool came from. And you'll find, if you've got the book, this tool is on page 150. Well, it is of my book. It might have changed in subsequent editions. Habit 4 is think win-win for you and others. 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Now, if you've listened to my listen to me talk about different maps of the world, that is exactly what that is. 6 is synergize, that's about creative cooperation. And finally, habit 7 is sharpen that saw. And the line that I take from that chapter is, if you don't look after the golden goose, you can't lay golden eggs. And on that note, I will close this Facebook Live. I've had my 10 minutes and a few seconds. So if you have any questions at all, then just put them on the comments boxes underneath, and I will reply to every question that you ask. And I wish you a fabulous Wednesday. I wish you a fabulous rest of the week and a gorgeous, gorgeous bank holiday Monday. I hope the sun shines for you wherever you are in the UK. And if you're abroad or in other parts of the world, then you probably haven't got a bank holiday Monday. But either way, have fun. Bye for now.